so much for and coming out this morning and joining Fred and I. Fred Gutenberg's back there. I'm Missy Kukan. I am the Farmers Market Manager. Can you all hear me? I'm pretty loud.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. And Fred came up with this great idea for us to have all of you here to help you. We knew there'd be a range of needs. Some that just are starting to think about what they're interested in, to those that have already really been in a farmer's market or want to make a professional business. So we figured between the two of us and our guests, between Randy Tietz and Tyler Kubicek from the state, or city health department, we could answer most of your questions. And there were a bunch of handouts. If you didn't get one before you leave, please let me know. I also will email everybody some more links to really helpful information. One is, do you need a seller's permit? And it's a great yes/no that you can follow if you need a seller's permit. There's also quick tips for bakers, picklers, and canners that you received, but it printed funny. So there's another copy online. There's also a wonderful marketing slideshow that was put together by University of Platteville and the Platteville Farmers Market. So if you're looking for marketing ID, how to market, or what things you should think about when marketing, everything from how to set up a booth, how to stand there. There are a lot of, having been a vendor for years down at the farmers market and now the manager of the Watertown Farmers Market, the one thing that I see that is a downfall of people's sales is they're sitting behind their table. You need to get up and engage. Even if you're just standing there and smiling and saying good morning or good evening, what time your market is, it makes a huge difference of drawing people in. If you're sitting behind your table, you look bored, and people are just gonna pass by. But it also talks about your labeling and your signage, all of those important little pieces we don't think about. And if you can't afford a big sign, being a professional printed, just make sure whatever signage you have is neatly written and clear. So those are all on the marketing slideshow. There's also, there's a document in there with a bunch of different links that are put out by the state dealing with laws and best practices, particularly if you are a baker and canner and pickler. Because there's a lot that, and I'm sure that Tyler will speak more to this, there's been a lot of changing with this, the cottage law of baking has kind of shifted and then come back, and so there's some subtleties in there, but I tried to pick the easiest reads for you that got to the point right away. About the farmers market, and then I'm going to turn it over to Tyler because he really is the one you probably want to hear from regarding what you need to make sure the health department is okay with. But if you're interested in the farmers market, this is where you think you want to start out. I do have applications, printed applications in the back, and I also have them online on the Main Street because we are under the umbrella of the Main Street. So all money that's made through the farmers market goes into the Main Street program in Watertown to give us our decorations, our flowers, to help with making the alleyways better when the streets are pulled up in a few years. So the totes, the cookbook, all of that goes back into the city. But also on the Main Street website, there's also the application. And I have printed ones back there. But just generally, we're Tuesdays from 7 a.m. to noon. And we run from May 6th to October 28th. You do not have to sign up for a whole season. You can sign up, there's a minimum of a 3-week sign up. They don't have to be in a row. It would be $10, it would be a total of $30 because it's $10 per day. If you sign up for 3 and say, oh, I want to do more, then it's $10 a day for you. Otherwise, it is $185 for the whole season, which if you look at other farmers markets, it's extremely inexpensive. Most farmers markets are $250 to $300 per season. We are an extremely reasonable farmers market. It is a very successful farmers market for a bunch of reasons. One, our prices are better usually, but we also have a lot of parking and we have bathrooms. And most farmers markets don't have that. So not only for the patrons, but for you as vendors, to sit there for 5 hours without a bathroom is kind of a big deal. So having ready bathrooms, and if you read the Watertown Daily Times, which you all should, there's, we know we've got a little bit of an issue with our new bathrooms down there, but that's not our fault, that's contractors' fault, but we still have bathrooms. We also have a junior entrepreneur program, so if you have kids or grandkids that are interested, it's ages 6 through 16. They are allowed 3 weeks, 3 Tuesdays through the season, and they get a discounted rate for those 3. And they don't have to sign up for a total of 3. They can just do 1 or 2, and it was really successful. I'll tell you, when people come through and they see kids selling things, they buy. So if you have a child who grows something or makes something or bakes something, you might want to have them try it out, particularly in that age group where they can't get jobs usually. They're too young. And it's something fun to do, and you see a real neat combination of parent and child. Do any of you have any questions right now? Fred?
How do you allocate how many vegetable vendors you have and how many woodworking vendors? How do you deal with that?
Yeah, I don't like to saturate my farmer's market. If it's oversaturated, then nobody wins. We did lose a produce vendor. He retired, so we are looking to get at least 1, if not 2 more produce vendors, but we're looking more for picklers, bakers, canners, but again, and artisans. We're looking for artisans, high quality artisans. What my concern is oversaturation, and then you're not making the sales you need to make. When it comes to bakers, I won't do 5 sourdough bread bakers. And sourdough's the thing right now, we all know if we've looked at anything. Because again, that's too much competition in the size we are. If we were Madison, it would be different. We're not Madison yet. Yet, people, that's all up to you. There was something else I was going to say and I don't remember. Any other questions? Yes?
Normally I see you have in the brochure about having a tent, a table, so forth. What about if you have a trailer?
So we have all of our produce either have a massive van or trailers, and you can buy as many spots as you want. Like Hoekstra's, I think, takes 6 spots. Most of our produce take 2 spots. Because the way we're set up right now, as long as your vehicle fits in your spots, you don't have to move it. So what most of our produce do is they perpendicular and set the tables in front, and you can zhuzh out a little bit in front, but we have to make it wide enough that an ambulance can go through. That's legally what we have to do. Which did remind me, the thing I'd forgotten. There's also going to be 4 Thursday night markets at Benson Square. The farmers are not going to be asked, and I said the only way I would present this is if I could say this, and so I can't. The farmers are not going to be asked to unload their trucks and move them. We're going to find a place for the farmers, like along the street, to pull up, set up their tents. So the problem, we couldn't get farmers last year up there because we didn't have the configuration with the construction that was going on, but now with the construction it'll be different by the time those start. Farmers at the Thursday night market do not pay a fee. It's free for farmers. So that is a nice bonus for the farmers on Thursday night. But we are looking for artisans and bakers and canners and picklers as well on Thursday night. So and I will send information in email as well. So everything that I've talked about, you will receive an email form. Any other questions? Yes, Fred.
What time do you want vendors there and set up by, and what time can they pull out and leave?
And these are great questions. They're also all in the application. I have all the rules and regulations attached. You have to be ready to go by 7 a.m. So it's up to you how long it takes you to set up. I had it down to half an hour, so I'd sort of roll in and pop her up pretty quickly. But you can get there, it's a public space down at Riverside, Riverside Park. So you can, it takes you 2 hours to set up, you can get there 2 hours earlier. It ends at 12, we don't break down until it ends. You will find you'll get stragglers coming in and out, particularly people that they couldn't get there early enough for the produce, so they're running at lunchtime to get there. So you might find that it comes 12 o'clock and all of a sudden there are 3 or 4 people in the market. And I would ask that you don't drop tents and drive through the market if there are people walking through it. It's dangerous. We are, depending on how many people are signed up this year, we might be moving the market to the other parking lot for safety reasons. If not, the city's going to help me put up some barriers because sometimes people like to drive through the market. And you'll see me running around going, no, you can't go here. I don't know why they do it. They forget it's actually a shopping center. So, any other questions? All right, without any more from me, I'm going to introduce you to Tyler Kubicek.
Alrighty, good morning everybody. I'm Tyler Kubicek. I work with the City Health Department. We also take care of all of the licensing for the rest of the county. So just kind of quickly, who here is all for food today? Almost everyone? Okay, perfect. So kind of the spark notes of what we're looking for from you guys is if you have questions regarding whether or not you have kind of concerns whether you need a license, your best idea is just to reach out to us right away. There is a multitude of different food types and licensing ways that we can go about things. There's about 100 different exemptions that could affect specifically what processes and food items you're looking to sell. So always your best route is to just contact us at the department, and we are more than happy to provide any information, get you to who you need for licensing, whether you need a license or not. But I could probably talk for 2 to 3 days about different licenses and what exactly needs a license. For those of you who were able to, I was not expecting as big of a turnout today, so that's great to see. I will be providing this to you with all the documents that some of you may not have gotten today. These are basically all of our kind of quick tips and cheat sheets for what we're looking for. It's not a one-size-fits-all for every single business style that you're looking at, but it's kind of got some of the basics there. First page, we got some of the different exemptions where licenses are required. How many here are looking to be doing stuff under the pickle bill? Just one? Okay. So that's an exempt area for licensing from us. So if you have questions with that, we do have resources that we can toss you out to the state. And they are more than happy to answer any of those kind of nuances that can come up with that bill. Anyone here looking to do egg sales or meat sales? So as long as it's from your farm, we can provide you with all the labeling requirements for that. It does require a license for that. If you have one of the packets at the very last page, we'll have all the licensing application that you would need to go through for that. So very simple, it doesn't require any special extra.
Just a reminder, not everyone got your packets.
Yep, so I'll send all the documents over to you after we're done here, and then we can make sure that everybody gets a packet, otherwise they can contact us, and then I'd be more than happy to send that out. So, is anyone here looking to do like kettle corn, popcorns, baked goods? Baked goods, I'm assuming, are you looking to try to fit under the cottage food laws, or? Yeah. So once again, the cottage food laws, they keep going back and forth between appeals with different court rulings. Your best bet is if you have any concerns with whether or not it's something that would require refrigeration, or is what we consider a temperature controlled for safety food item, give us a call. We'll be more than happy to run through exactly what product you have and give you a determination at that point of if a license is required or not. The state keeps going back and forth, like I said, appealing the different rulings from the different judges. So one day something may be fine, one day it might not. So it's just best to get in contact with us, and we're more than happy to run through every single thing that we can for that. Other than that, anyone, or we have any produce vendors here? Are you looking to just do harvest cut produce mainly?
Yeah.
So
Excess of order.
Yep, so as long as it's just harvest cut produce, you're exempt from licensing. If you are looking to do any slicing or preparation of the food item, then that's where you would enter licensing territory, but I assume farmers markets, most people are just looking to sell their whole vegetables. Is anyone looking to do kind of like a meal service where they're providing like sandwiches, cooked meat products, anything like that? So that, you're definitely in a licensing territory then. That can go, if you have one of the packets, we have a lot of information regarding that. We'd be more than happy to run through every little nuance of your specific product that you would need for that, because it can range greatly based on what you're cooking out. So didn't have much to kind of plan for today. Figured I'd mainly try to leave it open to questions, because I'm assuming we have some very specifics that people are looking for. So like I said, basically your best bet is if you have a food product you want to make, give us a call. It's the easiest way to get ahead of it. But other than that, I'll take any questions.
What's the latest ruling on butter and baked goods? Because I've heard both ways that if you use an actual butter product in your baked good, that you cannot sell it then,
So,
because it would require refrigeration.
okay. It depends on where the butter is going. Are you more talking like a
Cookie type
frosting?
product.
Okay.
No.
So as long as I believe the definition for the cottage food bill is if it's baked in a dry convection oven at a certain temperature, it is considered a non-TCS product at that point. So if it's being baked and stuff, just because butter is an ingredient and it should be under that cottage food bill. And we can send out, we have a link for a website that is upheld regarding all that, that has a lot of that information in it.
That'd be great.
Question is probably commonly avoided. What's the cost for licensing?
It depends on the license. So if you're looking for a food processor, you're doing no food production, something that doesn't require refrigeration. So kind of common example, if you see like a coffee stand and they're using just shelf stable coffee creamers and such like that, you're looking at about $80. For our egg and meat licenses where it's all prepackaged good and stuff like that, you're looking at $50. And if you're looking for more of like the restaurant kind of style service or vending concession stand style, you could go up to the $200 mark.
A
So,
year?
What was the last number?
200 for the full service. So if we have people that they want to go out and grill burgers and brats, they'd be up about the $200 mark for that.
And like wood crafts or anything like that? Any?
That Woodcrafts is up. I don't deal with, this is only for food. So I'm only here for food.
Perfect.
If you're here for any artisan, if you're a painter, pottery, outside of my jurisdiction.
So this is just a state license then?
So this is a local license. So we are the City of Watertown Health Department. We are also contracted by the county for the environmental services. Our license is accepted in all the other counties in the state. We recommend that, depending on where you plan to mostly sell, so if you're planning just to mainly sell at the Watertown market, we would recommend you go through our office. When we have people or our licenses go to other counties, that county, whoever is inspecting, has the right to charge an inspection fee. So if you're planning to possibly try to sell mainly in Dane County, we'd probably tell you to go over towards Dane County for your licensing, just because if you pay us, you might have to pay them a $100 inspection fee. Ours is only $20, but if each county has the right or jurisdiction to set their own fee.
What does juicing fall into?
What type of juicing are we talking?
Like,
Making orange juice, or are we talking like greens and
yes,
stuff?
yeah.
You would most likely fall under that $200 TCS license, because I'm assuming if we're using cut green, leafy greens and stuff like that, those are temperature sensitive products, and with the production you would have to have that higher license. Also, one thing to include is if we are into the food production side, if for this stock, this is mainly for the transient license side. That's what most of our farmers market operations get. Any and all food production, so if you're processing, slicing, dicing, boiling, cooking, it has to be on site at that event. You cannot do any of that production if you're under one of our licenses. Obviously, if you fall under one of the exemptions for like the baked goods and stuff, that is a non-licensable, so that's another thing. But if you're looking to make like fresh juice and stuff like that, you would have to do it on site. If you want to be able to do it outside and come with it prepared, you would have to get a restaurant license at either an incubator kitchen, or if you have the possibility to retrofit a room to be a commercial kitchen, that's what you would be required.
Or could you run one here in town?
Yep, Fred has got one, and yep, we have multiple people who go through his kitchen to produce their product ahead of time and then bring it on site. So that is an option, and there are others in the county as well. So depending on where you're from, you know, you might have one that is closer for you at that point.
So all the licensing, Watertown licensing, so are all the regulations the same for every county?
Yep, we cover, so that's how it should be. We're all supposed to be under the same umbrella of the Wisconsin Food Code. The only thing that can really change is fees, and maybe inspection patterns can change. We aim for all of our licenses that we inspect every year. You can go on different schedules for that, so, but the core regulations are supposed to be the same across the state.
If I had a state license catering project already, what would be, like, would I still need this transient license to be part of the farmer's market?
So you have a catering license, is that a true
Like a
catering?
complex, like a full.
Okay.
health permit for the state?
Do you have, are you working with like a trailer then for your catering that you're catering out of, or?
I'm catering out of the kitchen.
So the catering itself, so if you're looking to do the, some caterers, they will have a trailer license, kind of like a food truck, as part of their business. So if that is part of it, I believe there's an exemption that you wouldn't have to pull the additional license, but if you have your catering kitchen and you were looking to do on site, you would just have to apply for that transient license permit at that point.
Okay, and that would still be the same,
It would depend on what you're doing. So if you're doing all the production at the kitchen,
Yeah.
I'm assuming you have product that requires refrigeration or hot holding.
well, the product I'm looking possibly to do at the farmer's market wouldn't necessarily need to be hot.
Okay.
It'd be a big item, so.
So it depends, the main reason why I'm at, it just will dictate what level fee of the license you're at. You know, if you're bringing hot food with you or stuff that requires refrigeration, you'll be at that $200 license.
Okay.
If you're at the, you just are making baked goods that don't make the cottage food bill, but they're shelf stable,
Right.
then you'd be at that $80 license. So it kind of dictates, or if they're prepackaged, you could be at the $50. So, but essentially, since you're not working with an extra unit that's under your license,
Right.
you would just need one of the transient licenses.
So Watertown is on the line of Dodge and Jefferson. Which county are
We
you?
cover the entirety of the city of Watertown, so Watertown is a little weird like that the entire city is under our umbrella.
So which, like, so if we applied for it and we went to a different county, like which county would be out of the fine, like if they wanted to inspect?
So if you apply, are you mainly planning to go for the Watertown market?
Well, potentially.
Okay.
We also market elsewhere, but both cities are like right on the line of
Yep.
Dodge County. So if we go outside of the Dodge County.
What's the other city by chance?
Waupun.
Okay, so that's outside of our jurisdiction.
Right.
So Watertown is, the city limits on the Dodge County side is the limit of our jurisdiction,
So you
so.
would not go into Dodge County.
So we do go, so
You
like
do.
the market for Watertown is
Yeah.
across the Dodge County line.
Okay.
We have businesses that are in that. Our jurisdiction is only the
Only the
northern
city.
part of the city limit. So anything that is considered the city of Watertown on the Dodge County side is where we are. If you're going to mainly like Waupun and stuff, then you'd be looking at Dodge, which is the state, is their inspectors. There's nothing against it. Some areas don't charge inspection fees.
Right.
We just want to make sure that you're aware fees can get up to $50.
Okay.
And that's a one-time, most counties, that is a one-time fee that you pay that inspection fee. So if you serve, let's say you pull our license, you go to Dane County 10 times, they most likely will only charge you one inspection fee on top of your license with us.
Okay.
So,
So then, does that only cover farmers markets, or is craft vendor, like craft fairs, a totally different ballgame?
this is all, so I guess I should have put that out there. The transient license that I'm here talking about covers you for any and all special events. So it's
Okay.
not just farmers markets, that was just the topic today, so I'm mainly gunning it towards that. But this can cover, you know, if you pull one of our, this transient license, this would cover you for county fairs, any city hosted event, stuff like that. This is all, you wouldn't have to pull multiple licenses for different style events.
Tyler, what if somebody wanted to give away samples?
Samples?
Samples at their booth that would be maybe cooked at the booth, for example?
Yep, I have an entire document about the regulations for sampling. It's a tricky topic because it can go very quickly both ways. Essentially what we're looking for is they have to be bite-sized portions, they have to be given away for free, and you just have to have means of keeping the food product, whether it needs to be hot or cold, doing that safely, a method of giving the product to the person safely. But it doesn't necessarily require a license. It's exempt from licensing, it's just these very strict guidelines that you have to go through to meet that requirement.
I do jam and I do samples.
Yep.
And as long as my jam is on ice and I have something that isn't usable for the customer to
Yep.
sample with, it's fine.
Yep, and it's normally pretty good, it's just we occasionally get into the struggle of what a bite-sized portion is. That's normally the most that people sometimes struggle with, so.
What kind of license would I need to produce and sell mead at a farmer's market?
Mead?
Yeah, mead.
That is one I would have to follow up with you after the fact, because I've yet to ever have anyone ask that. So we've never dealt with any form of alcohol, so I don't know where that falls in line with what requirements, liquor licensing, if there's anything that we would need for that. So I'd be more than happy to follow up with you after the fact, because we've never dealt with that, so perfect.
How do nonprofits deal with license? Do they need licenses like for the organization, or do they need any, or?
It depends. So if they're a 501c, they are given an allotment of 3 days of what we call is meal service. So that's like, trying to think of what order. They'll have like Knights of Columbus as an example. They'll do their fish fries, or we have different organizations that do spaghetti dinners and stuff. They're given 3 days a year that they're able to do that, with an additional allotment for like bake sale style, where they're allowed to do that without a license. As soon as they hit that 4th day, they're required to get a license like everyone else. So they can do their first 3 events without any license. As soon as they would go for that 4th event, we would just enter a license for them. So they do get an allotment of freebies.
Talk a little bit about labeling on packaged products and required signage on the table for pickleball.
So pickleball, you have to, we'll start with there. That is where you have to have a little slate just saying that the product was made in a home kitchen that's not done under inspection. When we're looking for labeling for any prepackaged good that's under one of our licenses, we are looking for where it was made, the name of the business, kind of some contact information. So if in the event that they would need to do a trace back, we know the person has a way that they can get in touch with who the product was from. And we are generally then looking for a list of ingredients in there, just so that way when someone eats something that they have a concern, whether it be an allergen or something like that, that they're able to discern from that packaging what is in that food product. Anyone else?
You have issues as far as organics, non-organics, are you involved in that at all?
I'm going to assume any produce coming out of the ground is organic in our eyes. We don't get into delving into that. We don't deal with, we don't worry about nutrition labeling for calories or anything like that. We're just looking for the basic what a product is, so that someone can be educated enough on what they're eating.
So I make cooking tallow from beef
Okay.
fat. What kind of extra would I need to be putting on my jars?
That's a good question. I haven't dealt with beef tallow either. So I'm assuming you would need ingredients where it was production-wise. How are you packaging it?
So it's pressure sealed in a jar.
Okay.
So it's not.
So it's a can.
It's a canned item, but it's not like cooked in a pressure canner or a hot boiling canner.
Okay.
It's just pressure sealed.
Okay.
So like it's a shelf stable item. It doesn't need to be refrigerated or kept warm or nothing like that. It's just vacuum sealed, so like dust and air doesn't get into it. But what kind of extra? Like that's it. There's one ingredient in it.
Yep. So if that is a product that, depending on where the licensing would, since we've never dealt with a beef tallow vendor before, so I'd have to follow up with that. If in the case of if it's a single object item, your ingredients would just say beef tallow. We have other vendors that have packaging where it's just a single ingredient and they just have to put ingredients, what it is in that product.
Sure.
But canning and stuff, obviously, that might fit under the pickleball, but I've never dealt with beef tallow before, so be more than happy to follow up with you on that to see if there's any special requirements for that, so you don't get an inspector if you go to a different area all of a sudden calling into question. Part of what we're here for is to try to help you guys so that if you do face any other inspectors also, you have the education, because when we run into stuff that we don't know, a lot of people, it can raise a lot of concerns in the moment. So be more than happy to get in touch with you and we can look through anything that we need to possibly so that we get everything covered. Anyone else?
Some of our product has, we make it with alcohol for flavoring.
Okay.
Is there any, is there like an alcohol content?
It's generally put in the jam when the food is cooking.
not as
So
far.
the alcohol doesn't.
And if it's part of your gym under the pickleball, then you're exempt from what I would need, so.
Awesome.
But we do have resources, like I said, through UW extensions for that stuff that we can provide to you.
That would be great. I've had questions. I've always thought it's not a big deal because the no alcohol content
Yep.
actually left in the jarred product. But I've had people, you know, talk and.
Yep, no, and that's where you get that line of where it's an exempt product also. There's not necessarily going to be anything from my end that we can do in regards to it. It might be something that, you know, if it's a concern that people are having with the product, you know, that's just upfront, you know. maybe-
Oh, I'm always upfront.
Yep, exactly.
Process of
But
that.
I can double check with UW extensions and then get you that contact information and stuff. We had a great resource that is no longer there anymore, so we're working on trying to see who the replacement, her name was Barbara Gilman, and we're trying to find her replacement right now. And so we work with vendors because she was great for anything, and especially anything canning and pickleball related, so. Yeah.
Talk a little bit about storage of, if you're making a food product, storage of ingredients between the week of the farmer's market. How do you want, if they're licensed, how do you want that dealt with? Do they need a warehousing license? Talk about that, where that falls. I get, if there's one thing you're gonna hear today is the two words, it depends. And I totally get what Tyler's saying, that every scenario is gonna be slightly different, but if you can give us that.
Yeah, storage, much like your product that we want you cooking it that day of, we are generally aiming that you are sourcing your goods right then and there, that generally same day, because you are not, when we license you as a transient, you are licensed for your stand at the events. You're not licensed for like your house as cold storage. We don't want, our goal is not to have people storing food product that they are serving to the public as much as possible under one of our licenses at home. We know everybody, I'm sure, has the cleanest kitchen in the world, but we can't control, you know, people have pets, so we don't want you storing a bunch of dry goods in areas where your pets have access, whether they have access or their hair has access. We just want you to generally trying to source as much of your product that day of the event if possible. If you are looking to do, like I said earlier, the food production where, kind of like with your catering kitchen, if you're looking to, you know, we would want you producing the food, storing the food at a licensed facility outside of your home before the event if you're trying to have it for an extended storage period of times.
Do you only give a license if you're gonna sell it at the market?
What do you mean by that?
Um,
So anyone can pull a license if that's what you're trying to get at?
Sure, so let's say you're gonna sell something and you prepare it at the Watertown market. Do you have, or kitchen, do you have to sell it at the market, or can you just sell it from there? Do you know what I mean?
Yep. So if you are looking to do production, we'll use Fred's Kitchen as an example. When you pull that license, you wouldn't be getting a transient license at that kitchen. You would be getting one of our full, essentially like brick and mortar restaurant or retail licenses. So it'd be the same license that like Mullins across the street has for food production, or the local Walmart or grocery store. So you would be able to do sales out of that kitchen. That might, whether or not that's part of the rental agreement that is allowed to operate for sales out of that is a different story. But that kitchen, technically, when we are licensing you out of an incubator kitchen, you are being licensed, if you are for food production, as a full restaurant. So you could do sales out of that location as well, as long as it's allowed. So. Anyone else? Alrighty, well, I will make sure that Misty has all of our contact information. There are 3 inspectors for the county, myself. Kaylee Mason is the one who mainly covers the city of Watertown, so there's a good chance that you will be forwarded to her if you call in, or you'll get one of the other ones of us. We'll make sure you have all our contact information, and if any questions come up at any point, feel free to reach out to us, and we'll be more than happy to assist you through any and all questions you have. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
So we're gonna have Randy Teets come and share his story with you. Thank you, Randy.
crowd here today. Thank you, Missy and Kevin and Fred for asking me to come in here today. Hey, Marissa. Some of you here. Basically, I've been asked to kind of share our success story, if you will, and what you're going to really hear a lot of is really there's a couple of words I would say: persistence and evolution. I think are key if you're in this business. So I'm just going to kind of go through a brief history of our business, and then also how we got really into farmers markets in a big way, really in the last probably 30 plus years, and how we've evolved as a business to the changing times. So it's kind of, our family's been farming in the Watertown area of Lebanon, actually, town of Lebanon, for going on 2 centuries, probably about 180 plus years. So my great-great-great-grandfather came over here in 1843, Frederick Tietz, for religious persecution reasons, and they were walking to, I believe, Oshkosh from Milwaukee. They came in, I think it was October, and a real estate agent kind of convinced them to buy some land in the town of Lebanon. So glad that he did. I went to bed there last night and woke up there this morning. My kids are 8th generation on the same land, so it's kind of a nice thing. But to get there, I mean, we've gone through a lot of changes, obviously, since that time. I think they probably were just kind of farming for themselves to live at that time. And over the years, our family has gone through the dairy industry as Wisconsin Farms did the dairy thing. My family was big in cheese making. My probably 3 generations of cheesemakers in my family. My great-grandpa, my grandpa was born in a cheese factory. My dad made cheese. Actually, my brother ended up a food scientist. He worked for Kraft making cheese. So we kind of got into the cheese thing. I don't know if you all know this, but the Watertown Farmers Market is probably one of the oldest farmers markets, maybe the oldest one in the state. Is that right?
Yeah, 1862, I believe.
Yeah, so I don't know if my family's been coming that long, but it's probably been well over 75 years. I know my grandpa used to bring pigs when they had pigs at the farmers market. It was a live pig market. So it's at least 75 years that we've been coming. I remember, and this is where I think I'll get into a little bit of how we got into farmers markets. I'm going to turn 54 on Monday. So I've been farming probably at least 50 years that I can remember, doing some sort of planting potatoes with my family at a young age, and butchering hogs and steers and that kind of thing. So anyway, it always was a family thing. My grandparents were always around. My uncle was around. My dad, obviously, my mom. But anyway, we used to come to the farmers market when I was just a little kid. My mom would come. It was once a month. It was down by Pine Fisher's department store there on the river. And it was the Wild West. I mean, you could buy ducks, and chickens, and cats, and dogs, were all in crates. It was a true market, and it was pretty spectacular, actually. It was a big day. There was thousands of people and hundreds of vendors. And it was kind of the Wild West. And basically how that started was all the wives, really, of the guys that were selling their pigs at the pig market started bringing produce and vegetables to try to sell it on the side. And both of my grandmas would bring stuff out of their garden. And we'd always bring our extra produce there. So fast forward to when I was probably in high school. My brother and I both worked for Ebert's Greenhouse, and at that time they were big in produce. And so we just harvested produce every day. And we just looked at, our mom would go to fair day, and then we're like, why don't we do this ourselves? And instead of working for Ebert's, who are our next door neighbors, let's do this ourselves. So my brother and I were probably in college when we really started, doing more of the produce side of the world. My dad and my uncle they were builders. off the farm, and they also farmed. But we were commodity farmers, and I think one thing, you know, we were selling pigs on the open market, we were selling steers on the open market, we were selling our corn and crops on the open market. And, you know, one thing that I realized when I was in college, that we weren't big enough, you know, to really sell commodities. We needed to sell as much of our acreage as we could as a, you know, direct to a consumer. So, you know, fast forward, we run about 400 or 500 acres of property. We own a little over 300. But of that, we still aren't at all of it being directly sold to consumers, but probably a third of it. So probably over 100 acres that we're, 120 maybe, that we're selling, you know, between popcorn, A to Z vegetables, pumpkins, squash. And then also we sell pork directly to the customers at farmers markets. So we're taking some of our corn, grain, and raising probably about 150, 200 hogs that we sell directly to consumers as well during the year. So, you know, I think that as we've grown really since I was in college, you know, if you take a typical Saturday morning, and we haven't come a lot to the Watertown Farmers Market as of late, and part of that is we all kind of work off the farm, and so it's a challenge getting somebody to come on a weekday. But if you want to look at our kind of weekly rhythm, in the summertime we start harvesting all day Friday, and then we've got trucks on the road to Madison, Oshkosh, and Conemaugh on a typical Saturday morning. And my sons are now, they're both in college. One is turned, I should know this, right? He's 23 today, actually. And the other one is 21, and then my daughter is 19. And my sons both have ownership in the farm business, and my daughter were working on that. So, and they have now for several years. Missy mentioned early on, and I think that's an excellent idea, having the kids' days. We kind of were doing the kids' days without having the kids' days. My boys, when they were really young, I'm talking maybe 5 and 3, my wife I'd go set up at the market on Saturday morning, and then she'd come with them when it got light out, 8 or 9, and they'd sit there and help me. And as time went on, I don't know if anyone knows what a Hubbard squash is, but we just kind of grew those for fun. And they're real big. They're like a big, huge squash. And it's kind of a unique thing. And so we grew some of those, and I would actually let my son just sell those. I just said, hey, these are yours. We're going to set up a little table over here off to the side of our normal table, and this is going to be your thing. And he got so fired up about it. It was Jacob's Hubbard stand, and we put up a fancy sign for him. And we have pictures of these ladies all lined up, all stand there purchasing from him. And he would write down every week how much he took in. And it was really, you know, I think that's one of the things that I was asked to talk about, is how do you get the next generation in. And I think that's critical, is giving them ownership, because like after that, the next year he wanted to grow them, and he wanted his own section of that. He managed that, and like when we were getting ready to harvest, I'm trying to harvest stuff that, you know, is important. And he's like, Dad, we got to get the Hubbards, and he'd be out there and he'd be picking them all up, and that was like his pride and joy for many years actually. And so now he's like 6'6" or whatever, and you know, he still likes the Hubbards actually. So, but I think that's critical. For me, and I know there's others in the room here, you know, that family is part, you know, you just kind of grew up that way. And so if you haven't, you know, or you're just developing your family, I would say get them involved right away, you know, when they're just young, and try to give them some piece that gives them ownership. You know, because right now my sons are out working on the farm today, busy doing all kinds of things, and you know I get to speak here and not have to do anything. So, so that's. But I'm sure they got a list for me now when I get home. So, but they're very active in all the pieces of the business, and you know, really without them at this point, even at their young age, we would not be able to do what we're doing. And they're both going to school, and then my daughter is as well, and she's very active. And actually, her boyfriend is a good friend of ours, and he's very active in our business as well. And so, you know, it's kind of a neat thing, and they really like it. And in fact, I've had to kind of encourage them to go to school. I think they wanted to just, you know, keep building a lot of ideas of things we can do with our business, and I think we can. But I've still encouraged them. I'm a CPA by trade, and I've spent 30 years working in corporate America as well, while running the business at home. So I've really had kind of at least 2 full-time jobs. But I've kind of encouraged them still to go in. My boys are both doing accounting, so that they understand the business piece of the business, because I think that's important as well. And as things, you know, you hear all the, I don't know if our inspector friend is still here, but you know, all the licensing, well, there's also all the taxing, there's all the business structure issues. There's all, you know, it's not a simple, you know, when my great-great-great-grandfather came over here, and, you know, I'm sure he had a few gold coins and whatever he had left over, he put in his pocket. And now there's a lot more complexity in the world in terms of running a business. So I think I've had to kind of, you know, encourage them to get their education as well, and really bring some of that back into the business. So that's kind of our thing. I'd say it's very much ingrained in our family. Our patriarch, my dad, passed away in May. He was always a big part of the business as well. So it's a family thing. Fred.
Okay, first of all, I've seen your kids at the farmer's market, and they impressed the bejeebers out of me. When you walk down the aisle, they had their eyes on you 3 stalls ahead, and their thought, you can see it in their head, is I'm going to sell this guy something. How did your family go about reimbursing the kids for time at the farmer's market? Is it a commission? Is it, do you pay them hourly? How do you work that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say it's probably a little bit more commission, you know, and you know, like I gave that example of my son with the Hubbard stand at a very young age. You know, I basically just gave him all of that, you know, whatever we sold and of that. And after a while, I started giving him gourds and some other stuff, oddball stuff, and so it was kind of theirs. And so now I would say, yeah, it's more, you know, like real world profit sharing, really, is what I do. And I've made, like I said, my boys are officially part of the business, and my daughter is really part of the business as well, and we're doing the legal paperwork on that as well. But they're owners. And my boys, as soon as they were 18, I gave them ownership. And so they own, and now my one son has had some extra money. He's even buying farm equipment. And so for that, I'm paying him rent. You know, when he uses the farm equipment, we use it on the farm, you know, then I pay him rent for it. And we'll probably figure out a way to get him ownership in our equipment and just assume that as well. But I think it's important that I would recommend not hourly, you know. I would recommend them participating in the ownership of the business so that they understand that it's not, you're not always making money. sometimes you're losing money and there's a lot of pro bono work, and other times, you know, you give them a piece of the profit.
And I would second that. I'll give you a quick little story. I had a neighbor who lived out near Lebanon also. Had a neighbor come over one day and he was complaining about how his kids couldn't unload a load of hay in the time it took them to bale the next load. And I said, well, why is that? I said, I'm paying them $5 an hour. I don't understand.
They're gonna milk
They're
it.
smarter than you are. They could have done it. It takes them 2 hours to unload that load of hay. They made $10.
Yeah.
Switched to a commission basis, so much a load. Guy came back 2 weeks later, he said, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
So that is so crucial in getting kids involved in the business.
I agree, and you know, even when I go back to my days when I worked at Ebert's, at that time, Ebert's paid us piecework. So like, I used to dig potatoes all day long, by hand with a fork, and they would pay us by the bushel. Now, they would lower, early in the season, we were digging the really little red ones, and we get like, at the time, like $8 a bushel, dig them, and then as the potatoes got bigger, they'd lower the bushel price. But yeah, we dug way more because we're getting paid by the bushel. And we made more too than if they would have paid us by the hour. Sure.
You know, you haven't mentioned anything about your wife. What role does she play in your business? Besides keeping you guys probably all working.
Well, that's a good question because I wasn't asked to talk about my wife.
Well, I know she's part of the business, right?
She's absolutely like the glue here. I mean, especially when I talk about that I've worked off the farm all these years. All the marketing, all the website, all the internet order fulfillment, we ship, or we are in probably close to 100 stores with our popcorn, and all of that fulfillment, she does all that. We usually do the deliveries, either me or my boys, but Tammy does all the fulfillment. Yeah, anything you see that looks cool that we do, she does that. So, thanks for bringing that up, because hopefully if I'm on video, I don't.
Sorry, I missed the name. What is the name of your business?
Tietz Family Farms, Tietz.
It is outstanding popcorn. It is the best.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think it was 2007, I think, is when we got into popcorn. So again, I think, persistence, you gotta have persistence, especially in farming, but any small business, doesn't matter. You just gotta be tough, and persist. And you gotta be a little crazy or like do it because you love it, kind of thing too. But you also have to evolve, and you can't always do things. And that's the other thing that I really appreciate about my kids a lot, is that they're always looking at new ways to do things, and they're challenging me to do things differently. Being an old stubborn German, sometimes you want to kind of do stuff like you always did, and that's not a recipe for success. You have to change, and I think popcorn's another one of those success stories, and you're always looking for the next thing we can sell. And in 2007, we used to grow like this mini Indian corn, and at the end of the year, we would shell it and pop it, and it tasted good. So I was like, well, why don't we just grow some real popcorn, buy some popcorn seed and grow it? And I think the first year we put in like an acre, and I know my dad's like, what are you gonna do with that, man? I don't know, I have no idea. And I'm like, we'll eat it anyway, and if no one else. So we'll figure out how we're gonna harvest it. And so we picked it all by hand, just by hand, picking the cobs off. And then we ran all the corn through a hand crank sheller to clean the bees' wings out and stuff. We paled it from pail to pail in the wind. And then I don't know, we probably had about a ton that first year, and my dad bagged it all in little bags, and we sold that out in like a week or two in Madison at the farmer's market. So I think we were up to 3-4 acres where we were still picking by hand, and we bought a corn picker, and I mean, now it's evolved. Last year we did about 50 acres. We got a big facility to store and package it. So I think, you know, like, I look back and he's like, well, what are you gonna do with it? And we didn't really know. And in fact, like the third or fourth year we were in the business, we always sold out so fast, like right away, like in 2-3 weeks. I think we were up to 5 acres, we were sold out in a month. So then one year we just jumped in and we're like, we're gonna take 30 acres of land. And I'm like, we gotta figure out where the point that, you know, we can't sell our product is. And that was probably like 2010, I think. We put in 30 acres, and you know, since then we've been in the 30 to 50 acre range.
I'm just curious, you are an accountant, you have very successful longevity of a business. Like, what wisdom could you give to people just starting in terms of like the finance? Like, how do you plan for that? Do you take a loan? Like, I was curious if there's anything.
Yeah, no, I think, you know, we do. I mean, we use debt. You know, I think we're pretty frugal. We try to use it in a responsible way. I've never been afraid of it. I don't think my dad was, but it's never been where we get ourselves into a trouble position where we're leveraging something. So I think, you know, the key is just kind of still having a perspective of, is this a reasonable amount? And, you know, then, yeah, I mean, we take out loans. We have loans now. In some cases, may or may not need them, and we still do it because, you know, my brother is also, you know, a member, and my parents still were of the business, and you know, so you got several different families that are all part of several different groups. And so, like when we're running the actual farm business, we kind of want to have that run on its own, right? So, while I might have some personal money, a lot of times we don't put that in. You know, we try to make the business pay for it within reason. I mean, sometimes when we do something big or whatever, if we have the money personally, we'll put it in our own, buy some land or something like that. Then, you know, then we might pull in some personal money if we have it. You know, if we don't, then yeah, we'll look whether it makes sense.
Honestly, it sounds like your popcorn experiment was like a perfect example of when to borrow money. I mean, right, you started out small, figured, yeah, this seems to work, and then as it built up to a point where it's like, yes, this is probably worth investing more money.
Yeah,
into.
and we did, and that's a great example. In 2009, I actually built our first part of our popcorn facility. It was about 72 by 36 foot building. My dad, my uncle, and I built it. My dad was a builder, and my uncle. So we built that, and I borrowed a little bit of money. That was on my property where my house is, and then we in 2000. So that was 2009, 2013. We always had been selling like our pumpkins and squash, and I don't know if anyone's ever been, I'm sure some people have been out to our place in the fall. We had been selling them kind of in my parents' garage at the farm, and so we ended up building a big machine shed, but it also doubles as in the fall as our store. And it's got a nice storefront, and it's got, you know, we have all our pumpkins in it. It's about 105 feet long by like 50 feet wide. We have all our pumpkins and squash and all that displayed inside in the dry, clean environment. That we went out, and that was 2013. We did borrow a big chunk of that when we did that because we figured that was going to pay for itself, and it did. I mean, just our sales like that whole month the farm probably quadrupled in the first year when we put that up. I mean, it was really a case of if you build it, they will come. And then we have the benefit of all year it stores our equipment, you know, when we're not selling. So to us, the produce in the fall market paid for our equipment shed, you know, just by sales. And then in 2017, again, we borrowed some money. We expanded our popcorn facility. We added on a 100 by 50 foot piece to it. So that's now, it's like a 175 foot long building. And so again, we did do some borrowing there. So, but yeah, and we've bought equipment and things to help us handle the popcorn. So yeah, we have made strategic decisions and borrowed along the way. Any other questions? Yeah.
How do you handle, Ebert's Greenhouse also sells pumpkins and you guys sell pumpkins, so how
Yeah.
do you like deal with a competitor that's so close to you like that?
So, we both win, I think. Mark is a good friend of mine, really good friend of mine. I mean, I work with them. We actually rent some land of theirs, and as they alternate pumpkins, we kind of farm their land, and then they take some other land that we rent, and we work closely together. In fact, this year we sold them some pumpkins. They ran out, and we had a bunch left, and so Mark bought some. So we've always, like I said, been really good friends and close. I don't see them as any, and I can't speak for Mark, but I don't see them as hurting us. I see them as helping us because they're a destination, and we get a ton of people that say, oh yeah, we go over there for the hay rides and whatever, and then we buy our pumpkins here. And so there's a ton of people like that. And those people wouldn't be at our place if it wasn't for Ebert. So I don't see them as a competition. I actually, not to give you advice on your market, but I used to be we used to have a board of directors at the Conemaugh Farmers Market, and one of the things that came up in the market was this idea of kind of controlling how many vendors of this kind and that kind you have. And my personal opinion was, you know, I think back to, you know, when a new produce vendor would come in, my dad would be like, oh, no, they're going to give everything away. You know, and those things never happen. They'd come and go, and we're still there, you know. And so I told people at the Conemaugh market that let the market handle it. You know, if you have too many competitors, somebody's just not going to come anymore. It kind of settles out on its own to a certain extent. If everybody's selling sweet corn, somebody's just not going to sell sweet corn there anymore. It's not going to be worth it. Or, on the other hand, if a lot of people are selling sweet corn, your market might become known for selling sweet corn, and tons of people come because they know, hey, there's a lot of selection here. There's a lot of vendors selling this, this, and this. And so I'm always a little cautious about trying to control competition. And that's the way I look at it with Ebert's. I think it's a win-win, and it has been for us. I mean, you see that even in gas stations, car lots, or whatever. A lot of times they're all in one spot, right? So one builds there, another one builds there, and now that destination actually probably does better than if you were just there by yourself, because everybody knows, oh, that's where I go to buy a car.
Well, me found somebody to produce another product.
Exactly. I mean, for us, when I look back, and again, I go back to my dad complaining about or whatever, and I probably felt the same way. But it does make you think about, okay, what else can I do that's not here? And that's how we got into popcorn. There was one guy, he's from Reesville at the time in Madison, that sold popcorn. And I didn't feel, no disrespect, very nice guy. I just felt like he didn't market it, that heavily. I felt like we could do a lot more marketing than he did. But that was it. There was nobody else at the market. And that's the way it is right now, really. I mean, in Madison, we're kind of known as the popcorn people.
I sell jam, and at the farmer's market that I was in last year, there were 3 other jam vendors, and it's a small market. Basically, for me, I did flavors that nobody else did, and in a way that nobody else was doing, so that my product was different enough from the other products, but still supported the other people. So if somebody would come to me and say, I want raspberry jam, do you have raspberry jam? I would say, no, I don't make raspberry, but this other vendor does. And I'd send them there. And they started doing the same thing for me because I do a lot of hot pepper stuff. So if anybody asked them for hot peppers, they would say, oh, I don't do hot peppers, but I know the other vendor does. And then you just kind of keep good relations with your competitors that way.
That's a great example, and it makes you better. At the end of the day, you're now doing, those are probably flavors you wouldn't have done if you were just there by yourself. You just, I'll do these 3 or whatever. But now you're trying to differentiate, and the consumer wins because you've now got something else. It's a little painful process, but you become better yourself. I mean, I look back at all our history at farmers markets, all the things I've learned from other vendors. I mean, I've learned a lot about produce, about all the things we sell. And, you know, had they not been there, and a lot of them are gone. They're all gone, you know, and we're still there. But had they not come, then I wouldn't have known what I know. Any other questions? Otherwise, thanks for letting me share that.
Thank you, Eddie.
Yeah.
Great advice. I'm gonna take it.
Thank you.
So thank you all. We have one more speaker, Fred, and he's the reason we're all here. This was Fred's brainchild, and I'm eternally grateful for it.
Thank you for the nice introduction. Okay, I got about 4 hours worth of stuff I'm going to pack into the next 20 minutes here. So if I get going too fast, just yell out questions. We had you put down some questions that you were interested in. I think we covered a lot of them when you registered. One of them I noticed that we haven't covered is sales tax. Okay, I am not an accountant. I am not a tax lawyer, so do not take my word for this. But I'll give you what I know about the Department of Revenue, Wisconsin State Department of Revenue. So most grocery items are exempt from sales tax. Meat, produce, dairy products, bakery items. There are exceptions. So if you're selling a soft drink at the farmer's market, it's taxable. If you're selling a product, a hot dog or something like that that's ready to be eaten, that's going to be consumed at the farmer's market, that is taxable. If you're certain sweets, chocolates, so if you're dipping strawberries in chocolate, taxable. And it gets really detailed as far as whether something is coated in sugar or whether something is covered in chocolate, it may or may not be taxable. So kind of the theme of the whole morning has been, it depends. And so with sales tax, it depends what you're selling and where you're selling and how you're selling it. Okay, I'm going to give a little talk about Watertown Farm Market Kitchen. We are an incubator kitchen in Watertown here, which is a commercial kitchen. So it can be rented and you can do any food business out of there. So anything that's above harvesting those carrots or sweet corn or whatever, you start chopping it like the inspector told us. Now it's something that needs to be done in a commercial kitchen. And there's a whole bunch of exceptions to it. Wisconsin has a pickle bill and it has a bakery ruling. It's not really a law. A few years back, some judges started ruling that doing home baking was legal. Okay, Department of Agriculture can't quite grasp how they want to deal with this, so it is still evolving. For doing canned items, you're allowed to do up to $5,000 in your worth in your home kitchen. You need to have a label on the container that says it's made in a home kitchen. And if you're selling at a farmer's market, you need to have a sign on the table. It's supposed to be just events. So if you're in an event where there are people at, you are allowed to sell person to person. You're not allowed to do selling out of your home. You can't set up a cooler on the front porch and have people pick up what they want. It gets very detailed, so it depends is the rule on how you're going to sell it. I'll sidestep here a little bit and talk about one of our customers that started our kitchen a couple years ago. A lady by the name of Sarah, who runs Prairie Junction Farms. You're going to want to write that down. She has an awesome website. She has started out selling at farmers markets and events, and has now gone to, also selling wholesale. Their family was doing produce, they were doing pork. They've got their main products right now are an aronia berry syrup. They started out with elderberry syrup, but like somebody mentioned, they decided they could have a little bit different twist by going with aronia berry. Very popular item. But then they started making a toffee. This toffee, they started 4 years ago in our kitchen here. They've now outgrown us. They have their own store. They own Eagle Public Market. She has 200 stores on her website. So if you're interested in taking that next step from the farmer's market to finding stores that will retail your product, take a look at her website. She's got 200 stores listed there. One of them is Sendex. I talked to her right before Christmas this year. Their toffee, she put in an order for 20,000 bags for their toffee. Started out, her and her husband 4 years ago. This was going to be a part-time business. They are now both full-time at it. Their 21-year-old son is full-time at it, and they have 4 other kids that are involved in the business. Their entire income comes from toffee and aronia berry syrup for the most part. You can grow these business ideas as far as you want to go. You can be selling at the farmer's market. Maybe you just want to earn enough for a family vacation, or maybe you want to take it to that next level. It can be done. So, talk a little bit about what it takes to be able to use our kitchen. Everybody that uses our kitchen needs to be licensed. The people that are licensed there now, if I let you in and you're not licensed, everybody's license will become void. So everybody has to be licensed that's using it. We charge an hourly rate for using the kitchen. We have double stacked convection ovens, we have gas cooktop, we have stainless tables, we have the stainless sinks that the state requires. We have some storage area for ingredients. We have a small amount of refrigeration and freezer units. We have a bread proofing cabinet. We have a bunch of different of the bigger equipment. You are expected, you bring in your favorite mixing bowl, your favorite measuring cup, that type of thing, because I can't possibly stock all of the different size baking pans and things like that. So you bring that in on your own. Everybody gets licensed. We help you through the licensing process. Once you start becoming licensed with food products, there's a ton of details as far as what needs to go into labeling. You need to have the name of your business on it, the name of the product. You need to have the unit of measure that you've got in there, whether you're selling it by the pint or the ounce. If you're selling it by weight, it's ounces and grams has to be on there. You need to have a complete list of ingredients that are in that product. You need to have allergen warnings. If one of your ingredients has sub-ingredients, all that needs to be listed on. So it does get very, very technical. Quite honestly, right now, there's been a lot of changes in canning laws in the last 12 months that are kind of slipped under the radar. The state used to do most of that licensing. They don't want to do it anymore. They only want to deal with people that are doing 60% of their business wholesale, and they really don't want to do it at all. A lady by the name of Barbara Ingham used to be at the University of Wisconsin. She would put on classes, required classes by the state inspectors to become licensed to sell canned products. She retired. The state did not replace her. The closest process of authorization that I know of right now is in North Carolina. And it's about 3 times as expensive as it used to be. So quite honestly, you're probably better off doing home canning, pickle bill rules for that right now until this gets cleared up. Somebody earlier asked about meat, right? Yep, okay. One thing you're definitely going to need to do is get in touch with the Bureau of
alcohol, firearms, alcohol on the federal level. If I can suggest for everybody else, if you can avoid the feds, the Fed inspectors are just obnoxious. I always say every inspector that comes into my kitchen brings a smile to my face. Most of them, it's a smile when they walk in the door. There's a few of them that I smile when they leave. They're a pain. They will ask you a question and then they will be quiet for 2 minutes and try to let you catch yourself in a mistake. So try to stay at that state level. Why would you want to go over a state license? With a state license, you get to sell across state borders. So you can sell over the internet to Illinois, to any state in the country. You can't do that with the Jefferson County license. You're limited on that aspect of it. You can't sell to the retail stores because you're wholesaling if you're doing it at home. It has to be, you have to be licensed to do that. So hopefully I've helped a little bit there. Let's see. I'm going to give you a little bit of homework here. Some things you should look into. Look into something special from Wisconsin. It's a program for products made in Wisconsin to help promote your product. They do an event, usually it's in Johnson's Creek once a year. It's a big, huge sale. It's extremely popular. But at the very least, as long as you prove to them that your product is sourced and made in Wisconsin, they will give you extra marketing on that. Be on their website, that type of thing. I'm going to throw out a couple of...
Fred, can you repeat that one again?
Something special from Wisconsin.
Thank you.
Is the name of it. Okay? Do a Google on it, you'll find it. I'm going to give you a couple of YouTube videos that I really like. One guy that I like is Joel Salatin. He's got a video right now, working with your kids so they will work with you. Kind of goes to what Randy was saying about how to get kids involved. It's a long video, but if you're trying to get your family involved with it, he's got a lot of good points. One of the things he talks about is his granddaughter. They have an on-store farm. They do chickens, poultry, eggs, produce, beef, a lot of different things they're doing, and a lot of the family is involved. He's talking about his, I think it was 8-year-old granddaughter. One Saturday morning, she saw all this business going on, and she wanted to be involved. She went out in the cow pasture, picked flowers, came in, and then made them into bunches and walked around with customers and tried to sell them to them. I mean, who can resist a little girl selling bunches of flowers? So she was seeing what the family was doing, and that's one thing that you're going to see is if you are entrepreneurial, your kids will be. Do it at an early age. By the time they're 8 or 10 years old, by the time they get to 14, they're starting to get peer pressure and it may not be cool. If you can involve those kids at a young age, you're setting them up to look at a business career. There's another one that's really good by Joel. It's Joel Salatin on starting a homestead business. He goes through a lot of the details of how he got started. There's about 100 Joel Salatin videos out there. His story is they were farming actually in South America. The government came in and said, hey, we like your farm, we're taking it. So they left with their shirts on their back and they bought a little rundown farm in the Shenandoah Valley. He talks about when they went to, it was so eroded that when he went to put up pastures, some places they couldn't get posts in the ground because all that was left was rock. So they would put cement inside of tires and cement posts into it, and that was how they built their fences. He's now built up to the point where they have topsoil. He raises beef, he raises hogs, he raises chickens, they raise rabbits. There's a ton of different things he's doing. So check that one out. And the last one I'm going to recommend, there's a guy in the Dakotas called Gabe Brown. He's got a lot of videos too. The one I really like is treating the farm as an ecosystem. There's 3 parts to it. Start with part 3. He talks about how he developed from very small farmers markets to he now ships his cattle to Missouri and to a place where they can make the cuts of meat so exact that he can sell over the internet and can pull any steak out and it will be within 1 ounce of what he wants. Does a lot of grass-fed finishing, has a ton of details about how to start a farm business. So those are, I wanted to make sure I get that in because those are some of my favorites in regards to people starting businesses. Let's see. Pickle bill. You can't, even if you get licensed in Wisconsin, you cannot do pressure canning. It's literally another level class, and you have to literally go to Missouri to be able to do pressure canning. So don't try doing that. Try working with the ball canning books. Those recipes are generally easier to get approved. UW Extension used to have booklets out. Those are really good examples. Start with those. The lady mentioned flavors. You know, you're coming to the stand with raspberry jam. Yep, you're going to sell some. If you've got raspberry jam and a pepper jam and something else, you're hitting different tastes. You're going to hit different people. You will literally double your sales by having more than one thing to sell there. Easily. You're bringing more people into the stand, and as long as I'm standing here, give me one of these pepper jams. So keep that in consideration when you're selling. Let's see. Back to the kitchen, I guess. What type of things can be made in the kitchen? So it could be the canning things, like I said, that's tough. Baking we can deal with. The 3 bakeries that are in Watertown right now, Sweet Talk and Treats, Chandler House, and Sassy Sweets will be opening up here shortly. All 3 of those did time in our kitchen. We also had a lady from Beaver Dam that came down, and she was going to make cupcakes. And I'll tell you her story a little bit. She was with us for about 2 years, and she eventually rented a gas station that had gone under in Beaver Dam, remodeled it into her own bakery and storefront. By the end of these 3 or 4 years after she had been with us, she was to the point where literally on Saturday mornings, there would be a line outside of her store waiting to get in. She got started. She bought a bakery case and put it into a retail store in Beaver Dam, paid them rent for Saturday mornings. She would come by us on Fridays, bake, and she would sell out of there on Saturday mornings. We worked her way up to having her own store. She's since retired from that, started a family, but she told me the story on the last day that she was in the kitchen, that the first day she came to our kitchen, she made 8 or 10 dozen cupcakes, and it took her 2 hours. And she told me how she cried all the way back to Beaver Dam because she thought she was going to go broke. I can't pay this guy an hourly rate to use this kitchen and sell cupcakes for a couple dollars. Well, she figured out that her product had value, so she was able to raise her price. And by that last time that she was in our kitchen 3 years later, she had developed such a system of working in the kitchen that she did 300 dozen in like an hour and a half. You get better at your production. You can use these, it sounds expensive to use a commercial kitchen, but as you get better at it, you'll realize the efficiencies of using it. Let's see. I guess that's kind of the basics of what I was looking at wanting to say. Who's got questions? Nobody? Oh, come on. You're going to make me feel bad. Okay.
What's the scheduling like, Fred, if somebody was interested in doing that? How does that work?
Once you're licensed, you contact us, either email or phone call, and we put you on the calendar. Our calendar is on our website. You book hour, 4 hours, whatever you want. We've got a hot dog guy that sells at the farmer's market. He's in there for 20 minutes every Tuesday, prepping for the farmer's market, chopping onions, that kind of thing, and then he comes back to clean up. So we'll take 15, 20-minute customers. We'll take customers that do 8 or 12 hours, doesn't matter. You book whatever amount of time you think you're going to want. If it's 3 hours, 4 hours, book that. We put it on the calendar so everybody can see it. You should be the only one in the kitchen. On occasion, somebody may need to drop something off at the refrigerator, but for the most part, the entire building is yours for the time you're there. If you need an extra 15 minutes or half an hour at the end of your time, not a problem. You just write it down in the book. We bill you at the end of the month. Things that you need to have in order to be able to start using the kitchen. We want you to have insurance. If you're doing a home business where you're making food, it's your business, you can do what you want, but there are people out there that are looking to sue you. You don't want to be 5 years down the road and have built up a business and then someone comes along and sues you for $100,000 because they think they got sick. Have product liability insurance. available through the independent insurance agencies will cost you somewhere in the area of $2 a day, so $600–700 a year, but it's well worth it. We have a $100 security deposit. You have to have a license, and we ask that you have taken a safe serve class. So that's how to work in a commercial kitchen, how to be clean, how to do sanitizing, how to handle things in the proper order. If you're making bakery products, you're going to make your non-allergy bakery products first. So you're going to make your things without peanuts first, and anything that has peanuts added to it, you will make that later, and so on down the line. Because you don't want, it gets so detailed that you do not want the dust from the peanuts in the air when you're making. And it's a legitimate, there are people, there was just one, I think in Watertown here, that died of a peanut allergy. A young lady ate something that she didn't know had peanuts in it and died from it. So it's something to be very conscious of. What's the inspector going to want to talk to? He's going to want to see all your recipes when you start out. I told everybody, put a 3-ring binder together. Put your safe serve in there, put your recipes in there. You should have a recall process. If you're going to be licensed and you're making a packaged food product, you should have a recall process. What does that involve? Okay, I came in the kitchen today and I made 3 different products and I got 18 packages of this and 20 of that and 10 of this. So you're going to keep track of how many packages you made. You're going to keep track of the lot numbers of your ingredients. Sounds difficult. You can make yourself a form for each product you made and just fill them in as you go. You can get so detailed as far as there has been recalls over glass jars that had bits of glass on the inside from when they machined the top of the glass that didn't get cleaned properly. That could cause a recall. So it's not something that you maybe did, but it can be something that your ingredients or your packaging caused. So you're going to keep track of how many of each type of thing you made. Then they also ask, how did you sell it? Okay, I sold 10 jars at the Watertown's Farmers Market. I took 8 jars down to Ava's Boutique, and she's retailing it for me. And I sold a couple others at Benson Square. Okay, but they want you to be able to prove where all of this lot went. So when they come to you and say, hey, we found a problem, we have a complaint about one of your products, you need to be able to pull out a piece of paper and say, yep, that day I made 18 of those in that lot, and here's where they were sold. Okay? All of this sounds like it's really hard and really difficult. Take it one step at a time. Take a month or 2 or whatever it's going to take for you. I've had people take 6 months or a year to go through the process of getting ready for that inspection. We had a high school young lady, about 6 years ago that we helped start a food business. I did a talk on entrepreneurialism at the high school. She wrote me a letter and wanted to become an intern with our kitchen. Really didn't have anything for her, but we helped her get started in a food business. And she made a snack food. Basically, it was a Chex Mix. And she did everything from the labeling to getting through the interview with the inspector to all of the production. She did the marketing. There's actually a little flyer back there about marketing with different social media things. She made that for us. In the end, she made her product. She sold it at the school, to the school snack bar, was her biggest customer. She also sold it to the movie theater and at the farmer's market and a few other places. At the end of the year, she had kept records and she was actually profitable with just making a Chex Mix product. So it sounds difficult, but this is something that you can do. It can easily be accomplished.
Is your kitchen available 24 hours a day?
Yep, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If you want to work at midnight, that's cool with us. Once you're licensed, you get a key, and we've got a parking lot right behind our building, and it's real accessible right now. It's at some point the city of Watertown is going to be tearing up Main Street, and we're going to deal with that when it happens. But hopefully, it goes better than the bridge building project. Otherwise, maybe they'll still be working on the bridge when that happens.
Fred, you also mentioned, I don't know if you mentioned, you have dehydrators in there as well.
Yep, we have dehydrators, so you can make dried products. We have the bread proofing cabinet. So we've got a bunch of different things. We've got small storage lockers so you can keep your ingredients. One of the things that the inspectors like is you bring a 10-pound bag of sugar and you can buy that at the Piggly Wiggly. That's not a problem. But Once you start using it, if you use half of that bag of sugar and you were to take it home, you cannot bring that from your home back to the commercial kitchen. So they like to see it stored at the kitchen. Safety reasons, obviously, they don't want pets getting into it, whatever. So they are pretty strict about that. When the state was doing more of our licensing, they would allow home storage of your finished product, but you would have to apply for a warehouse license. So they would come out to your house, make sure that if it was refrigerated, that you had proper refrigeration, that you had a storage area that was away from pets, that type of thing. Once a year, pop in and take a look at it and charge you $100 for it. But that way you can have warehousing at home for some of these food products. Anything else? All right. I'll be around a little bit, or if somebody's got a question on something specific, feel free to ask. Yeah. We have some flat pans, yes, like cookie sheets. We have like 20 of those, there's some perforated ones. We have a few kettles and things that we've accumulated through the years.
And you're okay if I bring my own kettles in and things like that?
Canning kettles, that's a, glad you asked that. We actually have a tilt grazing pan, which is basically a huge kettle. We've got a faucet, fill it with water, and you can use it as a canning kettle. It will hold, I think it's 12 quarts or like 20-some pints at a time. So.
Pots for cooking in, do I need to bring my own for cooking the jam and different from?
Yeah, preferably it's best to have your own there. That way it's maintained the way you want it maintained.
And there's not been onions cooked in it.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you don't want to be making raspberry jam and then find out that the last person put some onions in it. And we try to limit things like fermenting products. We don't allow them. We just don't have a place to do it, so the kitchen doesn't end up smelling like sauerkraut. A few years back, I had a guy call and was interested in the kitchen, and I gave him pricing and everything. And I don't give out pricing publicly anymore. I want to talk to you one-on-one before I'll give out pricing, and it's because of this gentleman. He went out and decided he was going to start raising tilapia in his garage. And he wanted to clean tilapia in my kitchen. Imagine the scales and the fish guts, and I was like, no, that ain't happening, dude. He was very upset because he had tilapia that needed to be harvested in the next week or two, and he didn't have a plan on how he was going to do it. So I did not know he was planning on doing that, and yes, we said, no, thank you, we can't do that. So. Alrighty, thank you all so much for coming today. This is an awesome turnout. I'm hoping we're going to see some of you at the Watertown Farmers Market this year. We're collaborating on this because we want to see more businesses in Watertown, whether it's that weekend business of I'm making jams and jellies, I'm growing produce, I'm doing whatever. That's awesome. We'd love to see at some point some of these become businesses. Oh, that was one other thing I was going to bring up. Businesses that have grown very large. If you've anybody ever been to Galena, Illinois? Okay. Galena Canning Company. Guy started out, he was a chef in a restaurant, decided he was going to do some canning and sell it at their farmer's market. The story goes is that his wife dropped him off at the farmer's market the first time with 20 jars of product. She came back at 10:30 and said, he was sitting there on the pile of boxes taking a little nap. She said, what are you doing? You were supposed to be set up, you were supposed to be selling. He said, this is our new business. I sold out in an hour and a half. Okay? If you go down to Galena, he's got a store now, it's called Galena Canning Company. It's hot sauces, it's jams and jellies, that type of thing. We were there about 6-8 years ago, literally a line of people standing on the sidewalk waiting to get in. It was a very small building. You would go in and you work your way to the one cash register. We went back about 3 years ago. He solved that problem. He now opened a second store across the street. He has a store on each side of the street selling candy products, hot sauces, that type of thing. So that's about as extreme as you can go with it. Another one is Intercourse, Pennsylvania. A lady started out, she was making products called Kitchen Kettle Village. You can find them on the internet. She was doing canning in her garage and started selling at a farmer's market. She ended up building a store in Intercourse. She then built onto it. She added a quilting area, and she added craft areas. And essentially, this family now has a small mall. And we were there on a Tuesday. It was really cool because they have a parking lot that probably holds 100 cars. They had 2 or 3 employees parking cars because they were that busy in the middle of the week. You can take these businesses from whatever you want it to be, from that weekend project for teaching your kids how to be in business, you can build it into something really cool, and that supports the family. All right.
Thank you for that.
Thank you again for coming. If you are interested in joining the farmer's market, we have printed copies back there. There are also copies of the inspector's business card if you want to take one of those. And again, thank you for coming, and I hope to see some of you this summer. Have a great day.